The Sustainability Now Telesummit is honored to share audacious ideas and innovative solutions from more than 30 experts from around the globe. Learn how we can work together to shape a world that works. Here's your host, Mira Rubin.
Welcome back to the Sustainability Now Telesummit, Shaping a World That Works. And you are in for a treat. We're introducing Amy Oskins and Amzie Smith of East Coast Earth Homes. And they have, with their team, combined experience of over 30 years building alternative housing. And we're going to have a conversation about Earthships 2.0. So welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm delighted to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having
me. So we actually, Amzie, smile. Thank you. So we actually know each other because you guys have been doing an incredible project in Ambler, Pennsylvania. And that has been the generation of a whole new arena for you in creating an evolution of Earthships. And for those of you who don't know what Earthships are, you're going to get an introduction via Earthship 2.0. So maybe Amzie and Amy, how about if you give us sort of a lead-in into what we're going to be talking about, and maybe an orientation to Earth Homes.
Well, what we're going to be discussing here is the Earthship 2.0. What the Earthship 2.0 is, it's the natural evolution of the Earthship concept. And what it focuses on the original design principles, but making it easier and more palatable for the modern person needing housing.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second because I guarantee you there are folks listening that have no idea what an Earthship is. So
an Earthship is a radically sustainable design pioneered by Michael Reynolds out of Taos, New Mexico, about 50 years ago, built with recycled materials and operating on the same fundamental principles of the Earthship 2.0. But it's still a very labor-intensive process, and it is very difficult for this design, the current Earthship design, to be incorporated into modern society and for your everyday person. If you have the time and the energy to build this and do it, then you do. But the Earthship 2.0 really is the natural evolution of that, where it's designed around the same criteria, but it incorporates modern techniques, modern building materials, more conventional architecture, which streamlines the building process, makes the aesthetic more palatable in 2019 for your average consumer. It makes dealing with the building department, inspections, permitting, as easy as any other house. It alleviates a lot of the uphill battle, and it's the same sustainable concepts. And sustainability is what is key here.
Yeah.
But it has to cost the same for people to do it en masse. We all want to save the planet. We all want to help with climate change, and that's great. But if it costs us 3 times as much, and it's out of the realm for most. So with the labor reduction, the use of modern techniques and conventional techniques within the same design principles, it really does make it something that's palatable for the normal everyday person.
And accessible.
And accessible. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And that is what is exciting about this, is it is accessible. It's something that everybody, from the building department to your average consumer to a guy walking down the street, can very easily wrap their head around. It also makes it easier to customize, just like your frame house, etc., your block house. Very easy for your own finishes, whatever your style or taste is. You're not relegated to one particular aesthetic.
Let me just point out, everybody's looking at this really interesting backdrop that you have. And maybe you want to say something about where you are and where we're recording this from for you.
We're at Stonehenge Gardens in a retrofit addition in Tamaqua, PA. And this is very key to our business structure as well, or what we're trying to do. Because the main concept is we want to make sustainability the new norm. It's really a paradigm shift. As we'll see in the slideshow, we discussed that quite a bit, as in that is what's expected, as opposed to me fueling my home. I want the home taking care of me. Well, this retrofit is not, the whole world isn't going to tear down their house and build, all of a sudden build the Earthship 2.0, but they'll take aspects and slowly integrate, and it will change, especially big change happens slowly within society.
That's true.
Becoming accepted happens slowly, and it needs to be taken, you have to be insidious almost in nature and very slowly move through the system in order to promote and extend this idea to everybody, and it slowly becomes the norm, and
So
living off grid becomes the norm. Taking
I
care,
love that.
being responsible for your own well-being, your own power, your own heating and cooling, without the addition of fossil fuels, power lines, outside sources. It should be taking care of you. It should be encountering the earth and the natural world around us, the sun, the natural energy coming radiating from the earth in order to do this, living with the planet instead of trying to fight against it.
And just to interpret the background so that people know what they're seeing, can you explain the bottle wall a little bit?
Behind us, we have a bottle wall in which we incorporate materials that would normally go for recycling or to a landfill. We incorporate those into our builds, which makes beautiful artwork, as well as it's repurposing those materials. And then you don't have, all the pollution that people don't think about whenever they are recycling. We're not saying don't recycle, but, we're just repurposing those. So we take bottles, 2 like-size bottles in size, and we cut those in half and wash them out and tape them, put them together, and they make a very nice bottle brick, and they look beautiful. And so we incorporate those kind of things, as well as cans. We incorporate those into our builds, and of course, about tires, we use those too. You see the door behind us. That's the other thing that we do, is we waste very little materials on our job sites. We try to use everything that we can. And so AMSI made this beautiful door behind us, and a lot of it was made with materials that were left over that would have just gone to a burn pile. Some of it, yes, of course, is new, but we were able to use up some of the materials that would have been wasted to put a door together.
Beautiful. So maybe we should just jump into the presentation so that we can get more detail. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay.
So what we're discussing today is the Earthship 2.0 concept, and we're focusing in on the design and operating principles. And a lot of it is comparative in regards to conventional housing and showing the dynamic between the two and how they can be actually implemented into modern day society, one person, one step at a time, with the ultimate goal of these design principles and these design criteria and operating principles being the new norm for housing design and construction, the new way of thinking about it. Right now, we think of housing as, my house, my furnace is running, or my AC unit is running. I pay my electric bill, I pay my gas, I pay this, I pay that. Comes in through pipes and wires, and the whole house is just, supported completely from the outside. It's reliant on so many different things. It's not freestanding or sustainable in any way. And where this Earthship 2.0 concept really stands out is that using modern day materials, modern day construction techniques, we're using the current norm to evolve, the current techniques, the current way of thinking, doing stuff, not trying to confront it, not trying to call it outdated, not trying to, make it look bad, taking these well-evolved, well-developed ways of doing things very conventionally and turning them into something unconventional just by simply changing the design criteria. That's all you got to do, is think outside of what's normal and what we're doing with every house we're building today, and just design it to do something just a little bit different, or maybe a lot different. Depends how you feel about it. I think no utilities for me is a lot different, and living sustainably without the influx of outside resources is a lot different, but it's not going to be different for long. It's going to be the norm.
Okay, so in this photo here, we have the greenhouse that we're currently sitting in. This originally was a greenhouse that was dilapidated, falling apart, not functioning at all. And we came here to do this job to put a gray water planter in for them. And it turned into, why have a gray water planter and plant plants in it whenever the greenhouse isn't even functioning, especially in this climate? So as you can see, we did a retrofit here, and this is at Stonehenge Gardens in Tamaqua, PA. And it's on the side of a conventional house, an old farmhouse. And amazingly, just from adding this greenhouse, it has helped with their heating throughout the home as well.
What we're discussing with the Earthship 2.0, we basically we grazed upon the design criteria. What are we designing our home to do? And how are we going to do this with the materials, whether recycled or modern materials and techniques, in order to keep this right there in the same ballpark as conventional housing? I can either pick this house or I can pick this house. Which one am I going to pick? So let's talk about the design criteria a bit. This is what we want our house to do. This is what a house should do. And that's the shift right there. Not what we want. This is what it should do. And this is what the Earthship 2.0 does. Heats and cools itself. It collects its own water. Chlorine free too. It's kind of nice. Generates its own electricity. I don't have to pay my power bill. You can grow your own food in the greenhouse with your recycled water. It processes its own wastewater. So that's less water. Every person that incorporates this sort of thing, it's less water going to the wastewater plant, less water contaminating our soils, etc. Human waste throughout history has been the #1 cause of disease. Actually, modern day water treatment is one of the major causes of our extended lifespan. Not having wastewater just running down in the streams, spreading disease. And incorporating, back to what we were discussing before, the earth naturally, and this is by using passive and active solar for generating our electricity as the active part, for generating our hot water as opposed to fuel, propane, natural gas, oil, used to be coal. This is what needs to be the new norm for housing. How it's achieved is up to the designer. This is how we've achieved it with the Earthship 2.0. And this is what we're building here in Tamaqua, PA. And the upcoming academy is focused around that design, around the educational features there, and the actual build itself.
So let's talk about the academy for a second to make people aware, if they're interested in learning how to make these kinds of buildings, that you guys have courses that you offer through your academy. And I believe the first one's coming up in July.
July 1st is the first academy session. We're either doing 2 4-week sessions or you can take both and have an 8-week session. It's 2 months long is what it is. I would encourage the 8 weeks. And there's numerous reasons for that. One, the focal point of this academy is education. Really focusing on design, architecture, how these things are implemented, how to have them done yourself or do them yourself. Really, the goal is every person that attends can take that knowledge, go off and do their own. After 8 weeks, that is what we're striving for. I did it on purpose. And that is really the fundamental approach of this academy. So our team is comprised of some really great educators, a lot of experience in the Earthship world, founding members of the original Earthship Academy, also implementing their modern knowledge of building techniques that are pertinent to the conventional housing industry and bringing them back home into the Earthship world. making things more streamlined, easier to accomplish within the realm of conventional building. You really, really don't get far fighting uphill, but if you go with the flow, you're really gonna move. So that's going to be a lot of the focal point there. A lot of it's going to cover everything from the actual permitting process all the way through to the finished building, and how it's all constructed, how it comes together, really based on the fundamentals and criteria that we're discussing now, and how that becomes the reality.
So that's July 1st through August 30th. And if people would like to register, they can go to our website at www.eastcoastearthhomes.com, and they can register on there and pay for the course. And the sooner people get that in, the more likely they will get into the academy, because we are having a lot of people that are signing up. So.
And for folks that are attending the summit, you are giving a generous discount on the course as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we'd like to offer 20% off of our academy.
That's awesome. Wonderful.
Really, really, like I said, it's so full of information and knowledge. It is worth it. It's just for the life experience in so many different ways for a person to join, attend, and really come with the mindset to make the most of it. Absorb as much as you can is how I would really, really express my thoughts there, because that's what I look forward to, is people really taking this new mindset, and like I said before, making this the expectation from a home. This is what a home should do. It's kind of like I expect my car to get me where I'm going. If I didn't expect it to, then maybe it would break along the way. We would all be upset all the time. Well, I expect my home to do this. If it's not doing it, I'm going to be upset all the time. So I'm going to make a home that does this.
And the bottom line is it's going to give us freedom to really live life instead of having to support a home. Let it support us. That's the big shift.
This is what we're talking about here on this slide.
Yeah.
And the reason for this picture here, because I couldn't find a picture that really expressed what I was thinking any better than this. This is a gentleman halfway through his build here that is permitted just north of Philly. And he realizes as he's doing this, as he sees how it's already not even fully constructed in this picture, how it's performing and behaving, and what this is providing him in the long run, with the same capital investment as if he did this conventionally. It's providing him, as you can see in this slide, freedom. Freedom in a lot of different ways. Freedom to generate your own power. Freedom to collect your own water. Freedom to process your own wastewater. I mean, the basic freedom to enjoy a comfortable temperature in your house without paying for it. I mean, animals don't pay for fuel oil. They burrow into the earth. They come up with creative ways of staying warm or cool, depending on what climate they're acclimated to. And, this is a freedom to choose during the construction process, with these criteria in mind. And you're going to make the educated choice on what part of the design is going to achieve what you want, especially when you're really adapting to different climates, etc.
Well, what I think would be helpful for folks to have an understanding of is, how are these things achieved? How is it that you have a comfortable internal temperature?
As we progress further through the slideshow,
okay,
we had to have a little suspense, Mira. We have it all at once.
Okay.
Gotta have a little lead up, you know what I mean? Then
Awesome.
The climax.
Okay.
I really, really want to focus on this last point. We always hear time is money. We hear it all the time. But what are we buying with this money? At the end of the day, what are we buying? We're buying time back. Why? So we can have freedom. So in reality, freedom equals time, which equals money. So this money I'm not spending every month on my utilities. This money I'm not spending to have my house, to support my house instead of the other way around, is money that I'm trading time for. Time I could be spending engaging with my family, enjoying the weekend, or whatever activities that people like to do, art, leisure, sit around. But the point is, this is the freedom you're truly getting. And this is what's important as far as, our quality of life, etc. We are the most creative when we are free. this is during construction. How does this compare during construction? As you can see, for the most part, it's very much the same as conventional housing. With, there are additional costs for some of the sustainability aspects, such as solar hot water cisterns and electric systems. But it's in this grand scheme, it's during new construction, it's not nearly as expensive as to add those things later. And throughout the lifespan of a house, they pay for themselves so many times over.
Right.
It's ridiculous. The return on investment here, which is really the only difference as far as the actual construction of an Earthship 2.0 is, opposed to a conventional house. And this is what we're striving for. We don't want the construction process to be out there somewhere. I want to be able to go to any contractor, anyone with my drawings, say, hey, can you build this? And I want everybody else to be able to do this. Not some, all right, I don't want these guys looking at me like, are you crazy? Are you crazy? No, that doesn't get me a permit. That doesn't get me accepted into mainstream society. And I mean, it's nice to be a rebel and all, but the bottom line is I want people to live more sustainably and actually engage with their housing in order to do so. It has to be fundamentally easy.
Yeah.
At least as easy as building a conventional house, if not more. But let's just stick to as easy as building a conventional house. And I think we really, really have something to step off of there. After construction. Now this is where the Earthship 2.0 shines. As we saw during construction, except for the addition of some of the systems, it's reasonably conventional. And I can't stress it enough that I can go anywhere and build it, and have it approved and not get any sort of kickback or have to hire in ridiculously priced contractors for whatever special it may need. Very streamlined. Not to mention the aesthetic stuff, which we'll talk about too, because it's right there on par with conventional housing as well. But at the end of the day, after construction, when I first move in and I enjoy my first month there, what do I have? Or what don't I have? But I've got zero heating and cooling costs. They maintain their own internal temperature, right around 73 degrees, which is about the average temperature in which a human is comfortable. Some people 71, some people 74, but it's the average.
Is that in every climate?
It's for humans in general. I mean the
73 degrees, yeah.
Right, because you would change some aspects of the architecture to fit the climate built in.
Okay.
As far as sloping of the glazings, etc., sizing your thermal mass, orientation towards the sun. All this is covered in either our Florida seminar, which is coming up in 2 weeks. It's a weekend seminar, or the Academy in great detail.
And you know what? It would be great for you to mention those things just in a little bit more detail so people understand what the considerations are when we get into actually building or designing an Earthship. That would be or an Earth home. That would be really helpful, I think.
Okay.
So
after construction, I'm enjoying my first month there. Got zero heating and cooling costs, zero electrical costs, zero hot water costs, zero water cost. My environmental impact after construction is zero. I'm not contributing to whatever resources are used to provide all these things that I'm not paying for or receiving. So my footprint as a human being throughout my lifespan starts to really shrink. And if everybody's really shrunk, we would be doing way better, ecologically as a planet. And with all this not happening, all these zeros that are really, for an Earthship 2.0, big fat 100%, it's reducing my stress. It's improving my quality of life. So when I go home, it really is a sanctuary. I don't care if the grid goes out. You guys worry about that. I'm not going to be stuck because a pipeline broke and I don't have heat. Like I got my kid bundled up like a big old beach ball and blankets and jacket. My house is still going to comfort and take care of me. That's the sustainable portion. Sustainability really, in essence, translates to independence.
That's a great comparison. or a great analogy there is independence. That's really what it's about.
It is, and this is energy independence. And what better place to start? Everything starts at home. My morning starts at home. My childhood started at home. Why can't my energy independence start at home?
I love it.
And
So-
we can't explain the, like he said, with freedom, the freedom of actually, you can actually feel that in your home whenever you live in an Earthship.
And the thing is that it's a living environment, and that's also very nurturing and healing. And the idea that the home supports us, that we don't have a constant expense, even if you're looking at it from a monetary point of view, people typically don't factor in their utilities costs when they look at purchasing a home. And here, there are no utilities costs, which is phenomenal. And it actually decreases over time the cost of the house year by year. Instead of adding a maintenance cost, it's reducing our overall investment, which is amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
you have that freedom from, you know, no utilities, and then the fact that you live in this home that's bright and full of plants and colors, and you know, just to have that daylight coming in through the front of that house, and
Yep,
just the mood, you know, yeah, it's great.
beautiful. Next slide.
No. We still have to create the contrast. We got all the good stuff over here. I got to talk about the conventional house, and you know, sorry to all my buddies in conventional housing and the conventional construction industries, but let's call a spade here. At the end of construction, I'm right away with my monthly and heating, cooling costs from day one. I'm either heating or cooling the place, or I'm sweating or freezing. I got a choice. You know, I got to pay my electricity if I want lights, or else candles aren't cheap either. So I immediately have an electric bill every month. This is the day after construction is completed. I've got to heat the hot water if I want to shower. So I've got to buy the water. I got to buy water. No creature on this planet buys water. I got to buy water every month. And all this stuff, getting all this stuff, not to mention providing it, just getting it and providing it, contributes to polluting our environment every single day. I mean, just the electricity, the piping, the digging, the wires, the transmission costs, and all that stuff, every single day contributes and contributes. It's ongoing to the degradation of our ecosystem.
Plus the energy that's lost in that transmission,
Which
we don't account for.
and the percentages are outrageous.
Yeah, they are.
And back to the stress thing, paying utilities. Now I'm out killing myself, sacrificing my freedom and my time to pay for these utilities, to do stuff that I really, 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 really want my home to just do for me.
Yep.
So that's the real contrast, and it's something that really needs to sink in. If you actually just expected your house to do this, and you looked at a conventional house, you would just be like, what?
What's wrong with this picture?
Mind? And that's where the shift goes. You know, eventually in 10, 20 years, people are going to look at conventional housing with this new set of eyes. Like, so you're doing what exactly?
Right.
Kind of like, you know, we look at people walking around their houses today with candles as what?
Yeah.
Or, you know, like I was talking about coal being marginally outdated. You're still doing what? It's, you know, it's evolving, and as our perspective evolves, we tend to look at candles like, and people are eventually going to look at conventional housing like, those guys did what back then?
Right.
We've been on the road for months now, and we've ran into a couple times to where, you know, we're staying in places that are on the grid. And, you know, we've had the power go out, and you can't even make a cup of coffee in the morning.
That's right.
You know, if the power goes out. So
That's right.
it's very debilitating when people do not think about how debilitating it is by living on the grid.
And also, you know, if we want to connect that to climate change, there are more storms, there's more there are more outages, there's more problems with water purity, and to be able to have your own system that's self-contained and independent is
and
more and more important.
That is so structurally sound that you're going to have minimal damage during a storm like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're seeing more and more. We just saw in the news last night 48 tornadoes that had gone through some areas. And I guarantee you that living in an Earthship, your home is still going to be standing. You're probably going to have some damage, but your home is still going to be standing.
Yeah, I question the glass.
You know, it's the glass. I can't say what a storm would do. You know, I've lived through tornadoes and hurricanes myself, and I'd rather repair glass than have to repair my whole house that has been strewn across fields for miles.
Mm-hmm.
So the glass, okay.
Okay.
Well, really, and this is capitalism at its best, really. And capitalism, despite, you know, what people say about it, fundamentally is a reflection of people's feelings towards things. We don't buy things we don't like. So capitalism is somewhat a good way of looking at things in this respect. This is why we're talking about a return on investment here, because you really, really have to look at your home as an investment, because it is. It is a big investment. Sometimes for a lot of people, it's the biggest investment they ever make in their lives.
That's right.
So why would I choose, back to, you know, in 10, 20 years, we're going to look back like, you did what, Dad? You chose a house you had the power, or, you know, you had the heat? We're going to look back and say, why? Because why should I be paying to support an investment every month when it should be supporting me?
Right.
And if it's the biggest investment of my life, I want to invest in something that's supporting me. All right, so how an Earthship 2.0 does this? It does this by utilizing design and construction principles and technologies that they utilize the sun and the earth and actually become harmonious with it, as opposed to trying to work against it. And they do this in order to provide the natural comforts we require. Humans have a very narrow temperature range in which they're going to live, let alone be comfortable. And the earth, if we build with it correctly, you know, that's where you see the earth berm, etc. Because 3 feet down, anywhere on the planet, the earth's natural temperature is 57 degrees.
Back up to talk about the earth berm. Like, what is it and how does it work and how is that part of an Earthship?
Well,
and orientation too, probably.
Okay, the earth berm, what it does is it actually embeds the structure within the earth, ties the structure into the earth. And the earth berm is on the north side. So it's tying the structure into the earth, which is naturally at 57 degrees, 3 feet down, anywhere on the planet. So I've got 3 sides of my building tied, encapsulated by the earth itself, and the earth itself being at 57 degrees. So getting to the human range at around 70, 72 from 57 is not a huge jump. 57 we would find chilly. So I still have my south face there. And what my south face is doing, I'm using the sun to get my jump in temperature when it's cold out, to get me from 57 up to 70, 72 by capturing and storing the sun's energy in this earth berm behind the building. I'm storing, using a portion of it as a battery around the building, storing this temperature to be re-released as the building temperature drops. Because as we know, energy will always travel, to where there's a void. More energy will always travel to less, and it's a basic, basic physics, really. Energy will always fill the void until you maintain equilibrium. So this berm becomes a back and forth battery of energy into the living space, which is we showed in a picture on here. All right, so what we're looking at here is a section or a cutaway of an Earthship 2.0. And you're seeing several things in here. Your living space right in the front there. This is the area, you know, throughout the whole building, whether it be the bedroom, the kitchen, living room, etc., where we want it to be 72 degrees, comfortable, real comfortable, and where we will be engaging in most of our daily activities. So this is the temperate zone. This is the part that we're focused on in the building. The rest of the building is facilitating this. So we're using this building as an implement in order to encounter the earth. So up in the front here, we have our greenhouse space. You think of your greenhouse as a permanent and natural furnace. And this is also in control. It also has thermostatic features, you know, in regards to regulating temperature. And this is where you see these arrows here. The one going on a steeper angle down, that is your summer sun. That is the angle in which it infiltrates the building. So during the summer, when it's the warmest, you're not allowing the sun into your living space. You're diverting it down into your plant space there. So it's regulating the temperature inside the living states by the natural virtue of the sun's positioning in the sky. The more horizontal arrow there is your winter angle. And this is what's happening during the winter. Now the sun is going all the way back into the building there, heating your living space. So your natural furnace, your sustainable furnace, because the sun's not going out anytime soon, is, you know, I heard it in the news today, is what's powering this furnace. It's not oil, not gas, it's the sun. So this is coming through and it's heating this area in the back here, including, you see these pink lines here, right there. That's an isolated mass of earth behind the building, isolated by insulation, isolated from the rest of the structure, etc., except through this wall. So this wall is your one-way door in and out of the building for energy. And by door, I mean energy can freely move in either direction. So we're gonna talk about this in two instances. One, when it's cold. So when it's cold, what's happening is during the day, on my horizontal line here, I'm heating this mass as well as the space during the whole day, and it's stabilizing and absorbing energy, jumping from its 57 towards 70, 72, 74, getting warmer and warmer as it's absorbing this solar energy. Now, when nighttime comes and it's still cold, what's going to happen is my energy is going to start moving as this space is trying to cool, re-radiating in the other direction, back into my living space. So I'm getting the sun all over again by virtue of this massive, because this massive area is around the whole building. It's 90% compacted fill. You know, you're encompassing truckload upon truckloads of battery, earthen battery, that's re-radiating back into the building, maintaining a very stable and comfortable temperature, right around your 72 degrees.
In traditional, original earth homes, the berm was built with tires that were compacted with earth. What are you doing?
The back wall.
The back wall. Sorry. So the back wall was then backed by the earthen berm, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now for the back wall, are you still using tires that are compacted, or are you using something else in 2.0?
In the 2.0, what we're using is poured form block. And the reason we're doing this, you know, is back to the fundamentals within our design criteria: ease of construction, ease of permitting, easy to be accepted and implemented in the modern society. I am a big proponent of the idea of pounding tires, but they're very labor intensive, very—
You're not kidding. Oh my gosh.
You're taking a house and you're adding a third more to the price. Trying to market that or incorporate that in the society is going to be very, very tough, with very, very little additional benefit, if any, into your end result. And you got to find someone who knows how to do this, very specialized in its, techniques and way of doing. This is your standard foundation. You can call up any region, any area, have this blocked and poured, and it will still do the exact same thing because all you're doing is transferring energy in and out of this battery. So a conductor is a conductor in that realm, and that's what this wall is acting as a conductor. Your battery is contained within this insulation in the back. So back to your design criteria, this makes it is a big part of streamlining this into modern society.
And so what else are we looking at here? What is this blue square?
That's your water storage. Your cistern is embedded in the berm.
Okay, and how about this pink area in the roof here?
It's R60 insulation. Any energy, hot or cold, our temperate area here, we want to keep it temperate. No reason letting it all go out the roof.
Okay, and what is this thing in the back here?
Well, one thing back to your aesthetics, the dirt berms surrounding the buildings are messy. You're going to have a very tough time, incorporating them into smaller spaces, such as urban areas, etc. So we're incorporating tire bales, which per bale use about 110 tires, as plaster retaining walls around the berm. So what they're going to do, we're still going to incorporate tires and recycled tires into the construction process there. We're just using it for a different purpose. We're using it to basically encapsulate this battery and this cistern area into a cleaner, neater, more streamlined, refined space, thusly reducing the footprint of the building, making it easier to put on smaller lots, etc.
But ultimately, using more tires to keep them out of oceans and landfills.
You're talking about 10 times more tires used than just pounding the back tire wall.
Really?
Yeah, you end up, it's 110 per bale. You're roughly using probably 20 bales. So you're 2,200 tires. So 307 times more.
And those tires, how do you source them? How do you find them?
Put them in bales to dispose of them. You just call the guy, take them to the dump, and just have them come to your house.
Okay.
They'll deliver them right to the site, to the build.
Okay. And how about cost for tire bales?
The cost is negligible. Probably, most of the time you'll get them for free. Unless you're making them yourself, then it costs you the baler, the wire, etc. Like I said, they're going to the dump. That's where they're going. So it's the ultimate reuse of material. The reason I say negligible, there's transportation costs, etc. If you're somewhere far out there, I can't speak for every tire baler on the planet.
Okay. Is there anything else on this diagram that we should point out?
Well, let's point out, your cooling. We didn't do the cooling aspects here.
Okay.
We dealt with the winter aspects, but it gets hot.
Yep.
It gets hot. It gets hot. Nobody
Yep.
likes to sweat. Well, it's the same thing going on here. Now, my furnace in the front is redirected.
Up here?
Yeah, by virtue, the sun is being directed not into my living space. It's no longer charging my battery there. But my battery back here still wants energy. It's still looking for that transfer. Because of the season, it's not there anymore. So what it's doing is it's pulling the energy out of my living space, and the energy being what's making me hot. So by removing this energy, my battery going the other way and trying to recharge itself, I'm cooling the space by virtue of that. And also, while this is happening, I'm using the natural convection of my greenhouse in the front. You see this gray tube here?
This?
Yes. But while this is still getting warm, just very in the front here, it's pulling this cool air through the berm up and through my living space.
So it's coming in from behind the berm?
Yep, right through the berm where it's the coolest.
Okay, and it's coming right in.
Right in all the way to the front and through the greenhouse.
Oh, okay.
And then
So this is acting as an engine now for pulling, because as the air gets hot here, it's venting out through the top. So this furnace we had is now acting as an engine to convect the air through the living space. So we're cooling it in a couple different ways there, through the mass being hungry for energy and pulling it out, and by pulling fresh air through this berm, which is cooler than your ambient temperature, through the living space, providing cooler air and ventilation, powered by our greenhouse again. Our greenhouse really is, a multifunctional tool in respect to this building. It's the engine, it's the furnace, it's what's really helping with this climate control and the aspects of it.
And how big in this diagram, it looks like the berm is as big as the living space and the greenhouse combined. Is that a particular proportion, or is that just this diagram?
In this, it is a relatively a normal proportion.
Okay.
Because you are encountering the earth, you are using the earth's natural, situation to your benefit here. So you do require, a mass in the back for energy storage and release.
Okay. Great.
So we're talking about providing our own water. Well, it rains. Water comes from the sky all the time. So we're simply catching it, sizing our roof appropriately for the climate that we're in to make sure we catch enough for the occupants per day, week, year, etc. And channeling, and you were doing this with me, Mira, setting up these cisterns, but we're channeling it into these cisterns where from there it's plumbed into the house. So we're catching our own water, which is readily available from the sky in Pennsylvania, more so than some areas. Storing it for domestic use behind the building in the cisterns.
And those cisterns get buried, right?
Yes, they're buried. Those actually are buried now. Yes, they're buried, incorporated in the berm to prevent any exposure, UV, etc., and keep them cold because the berm stays cold.
And when you say sizing the roof appropriately, what kinds of considerations are you really looking at in terms of options for sizing the roof? Isn't that going to be determined by the size of the building?
Not necessarily. You can, really, the roof, obviously, its minimum will be determined by the size of the building.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to get away from that. But if I'm in a desert, I would add things to. Basically, I would figure it out from my yearly expected rainfall, how much I need, how much cistern sizing, how big the cisterns need to be to accommodate. I wouldn't just look at the yearly rainfall, but how it comes throughout the year. Do I need to store for long periods of time, etc. On the roof sizing, back to the initial question, you would add awnings, overhangs. You can enhance your roof size without having a tremendous impact on your actual housing side, basically making it cheaper to make your roof bigger is what it amounts to.
Which is something that you can incorporate if you want to do water catchment with a conventional house as well, adding those features.
Just as an aside, I believe that there are states that have laws against catching water.
There are.
Which is unfathomable to me, actually.
Well, someone got the bright idea they could sell the rain.
Yeah.
Where they come up with that idea is beyond me. Colorado being one of them sells their rainwater to Texas. So, yes, they're not going to be too thrilled about you catching water. And there are stories you hear of people, they got busted for a water tank on the side of their house. I question the veracity of them. I'm sure there was a lot more to it than simply that. I've also heard stories on the other end of the spectrum where, no, they don't bother us for that. As long as it's limited to just our house and we're not trying to, harvest acres and acres of water into a pond, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, technically there are a couple, and it's very minimal. It's like Colorado and I feel like Washington or what's the other one? Oregon.
Well, it's just another thing to check.
It is another thing to check, but I don't think it should be any reason for someone not to feel their spirits diminished. Because as this becomes more widely accepted and incorporated, well, those states are just going to have to change their mind, aren't they?
I hope so.
Yeah. So we were talking about your wastewater, your gray water, black water, etc. And one of the virtues of this type of construction using botanical cells such as your gray water planter and your black water planter is plants like water. They love to process it. They love to take that water, evaporate it, and transpire it into the air. They love to grow from it. They love to just use it. And that's another part of the natural, phenomenon, circumstance that we're incorporating. Nature likes water. Green plants love water. We so happen to have this water that we don't really want right now. It's not fresh anymore. We took a shower for gray water. We use a toilet for black water, but we still have it. It's still something we have to process and deliver or deal with. So by harnessing this natural, situation where plants like this water that we don't want, we incorporate botanical cells, gray water and black water, into the construction. So your gray water goes to your gray water cell, which is within the home itself.
And will you point that out in these photographs so to give us a reference?
The fundamentals are still the same, whether it's gray water or black water. So we can still speak intelligently on them both here. We incorporate the plants, we dig a hole. We contain it. We use very thick rubber and we rubber line it. And instead of plumbing our water just out to the sewage system, the county sewer, or directly to a leach field, conventional septic where it's dropping it on the ground, we separate it in the house. We process the gray water separately through the interior botanical cells, which consume quite a bit of it, before allowing it to, if there is a need, to overflow into our black water situation on the outside. Now, black water is dealt with because it is human waste and it's considered black water. So it's something we don't want an intimate involvement with. So we do not incorporate it inside the structure. It's dealt with on the exterior, but in quite the same, way. Solids are separated in the septic tank, just like a normal septic system. But the effluent, the water left over, is sent to a black water cell, which is much bigger on the outside, where the plants are doing the same thing. They're taking it, they're absorbing it, they're transpiring, they're pulling it up and evaporating it into the atmosphere, absorbing this water and saving us the need to have to send it to a leach field or send it out to the sewer system. It's all processed on site by virtue of plants and plants' natural, desire for water. They have an affinity for it. They like it.
So you line this hole with rubber, and then what is next in setting up this basic system?
Well, here what we're doing, as you see in the first picture there, we filled the bottom with gravel, big 1-inch gravel. What that does, one, it creates voids for storing water. It also creates a flow through there. So all the plants it's basically an underwater pond, underwater aquifer. And all these plants that you see in the picture on the right and the one on the bottom, their roots are working their way down there, and the soil is wicking this moisture up into these roots. And these roots are harnessing or tapping into this water supply and consuming it. So as I take a shower, I can come down here and see my water is causing these plants to grow. So they're consuming it, they're enjoying it, and I'm not dumping it on the ground outside.
So it's like a lasagna layer. We put the gravel in there, and above that you can put a variety of different things as well as your soil. So we make sure that whenever we shower or dish soap or, laundry detergent, we make sure that we use biodegradable detergents or soaps so that you're not killing your plants, as well as the fact that in our homes we grow our own food as well. So we just want to stress that that's one of the things that we do. So these planters, they work very well as far as like you said, you do the gravel, then you do a layer of different things like peat moss or straw, or and then your soil, and you can grow amazing things in them.
And there's no problem growing those plants that you're going to eat from the gray water?
No.
Because the plants process it.
Right. You wouldn't want to plant things in your black water planter.
Okay. All right, great.
But you can grow amazing trees, in your black water planter, especially where we're from in the desert. You can definitely grow amazing things. But inside the home, in your gray water planters, no. Yes, you can grow amazing food and beautiful plants.
Well, I guess we're at the bottom line.
And I think really, truly, the bottom line is that big paradigm shift from our supporting our home to our home supporting us. And in so many ways, that's a phenomenon. And I love that you said, of course, you know, in the future, people are going to look back and say, you used to do what? Like, why is our paradigm not including the home supporting us, like being its own biosphere?
Right.
They are.
Yeah.
My kids will probably be like, "What? So your dad did what? You did what?"
Exactly.
So this is the bottom line. The bottom line. This means you are, and these are the points. You're building something unconventional out of conventional materials with an Earthship 2.0. When you live in one, you're living in a self-sustaining home, freeing yourself from grid dependence. I mean, that's sustainability, like I said before, goes right there with independence. If you can self-sustain, you're by the very definition.
And you know what? The other side of that same coin is you're ensuring security
Yes,
because of that independence. If a grid goes down, if there's a storm that takes out the sewage or the electric, you're not going to be vulnerable to it.
exactly.
So it's a safety and security thing as well. When we talk about sustainability, one of the things that we do have to consider is that we're facing greater challenges environmentally in terms of storms and such, and we need to be able to preserve our lifestyle in the face of that. And the only way to do that really is to have an independence and the security of your own little microgrid kind of thing.
Yeah, and we want people to know that you can live in these homes and not have to live way out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
And that's why the job near Philadelphia is such a big deal that we got permitted there, because you know that's in a town 16 miles, 15 miles from the center of Philly, and that's just proving that we're able to get closer and closer to, you know, well, we're in a neighborhood down there. So we don't want people to think that you have to live out in the middle of nowhere to live off grid.
Right. Right. And so I want to say thank you very much for helping to really create a paradigm shift that's going to impact all of our futures. Right. And to make something that is a viable option and a home that cares for us. I love that shift of thinking. It makes so much sense.
Well, it's proven to make sense in so many different ways. Like, for instance, we just left the building department, and the engineer there sees the sense in what we're doing and supports it here. And it's not so outlandish in its construction and design that we have to go through major hurdles. It's, for him, it's no different than looking at a conventional house and him saying, okay. So there is a lot of sense in the Earthship 2.0 and why and how, and you know, what we're doing with it and why we're doing it as far as incorporation into 2019, the modern mindset, the modern aesthetic, the modern economic realities, and inspiring others to do it the same. This is why we're doing the Academy, is to really root this thing and get other people out there doing it. This is why we're making it conventional in its techniques and implementation, unconventional in its result and its, you know, criteria or design, you know, and it's the expectation of a freer existence, etc.
And I just want to say again, for folks that purchase the Premium Summit package, there is a 20% discount to your Academy courses, which is really awesome and very generous. And I hope people take you up on that opportunity.
We are having the Academy here in Tamaqua, PA for a 2-bedroom build for the Earthship 2.0. That's July 1st through August 30th. You can do 4 weeks at $800 for a 4-week course, or you can do an 8-week course, and that would be $1,200. And it comes with a full set of approved drawings for this build. And then anybody through Sustainability Now with the summit
Who
that
purchases the summit package?
who purchases the summit package, they will receive 20% off of our academy or a future academy that we have. And they can register at eastcoastearthhomes.com.
Wonderful. Beautiful. So is there anything else that we should say in wrapping up?
It's just a shift of the mindset. If your expectations change, so will the techniques and the ways you make it happen.
That's right.
We'll adapt to your expectations.
That's right.
Let's change them. Let's change the way buildings are expected to function, what they're expected to do, and let's use what's available to have them do these things and create a better place for everybody.
Beautiful. Thanks so much for being with us and for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you for joining us. Keep the momentum going by checking out all the other experts. Every one of them has invaluable information that you can't afford to miss. Buy the Premium Summit Package now. Join the global conversation in our Facebook group and take action in your home, community, or the world at large. Together, we will shape a world that works.